Okay, well, hello everyone. I'm here today with a very impromptu stream with Davis Aurini. That's how you pronounce your name, right?
You got it.
Excellent. Yeah, so we had been talking about doing a stream together for quite some time, but I never really my schedule's been very hectic as everyone knows, and it never seemed like there was a good slot that worked for us. And I think I didn't realize this, but originally I thought I'd come on your channel, but I think you were a victim of Google's latest purge. Is that not correct?
It was actually last October,
Oh, really? Okay,
some
wow.
October or November. Basically, I had a really successful month.
Hmm.
Made lots of super chats because I had a co-host that her and I had great chemistry together. We had a lot of really good streams,
Hmm.
and and so I got mass flaggings, right?
Ah, yeah. I mean, this is part of the system is really abused. It's kind of ridiculous.
Well, the
But
irony is just before this, I
mhm.
was saying to you, I want a monopoly because I'm trying to, get the message out that we're streaming, and I go after like 3 to 5 different places to copy the same bloody message again and again.
Yeah, I
You know,
mean,
I
this is I was to repeat sort of what I was saying. This is a lot of people have understood this about the universe, about the internet, and a lot of people like Mencius Moldbug or Curtis Garvin. That's his real name. They're trying to move to sort of like this socket based system. They're trying to sort of cut the social media companies out of the whole thing so that you own the UI and they're just interfacing with networks. It's an interesting idea, and I hope it works.
yeah. Menkes Moldbug has huge fan of his writing, huge fan of his perspective. He's looking at things. How to put it? He sees the strategic differences in what's going on, right? Like that even goes back to the very basic, introduction to what was it what is he his old to unqualified
Yeah,
reservations.
unqualified reservations, and he hit the. I think the one everyone cites is always the open letter to an open-minded progressive, which is one of the longest letters ever. But there you go.
I'm a big fan of how Dawkins got pwned,
Yeah, that one was a good one. I didn't encounter it until way later, though.
but he breaks away from the Republican versus Democrat paradigm of the world into the okay, where does power actually lie? Have you
Yeah.
have you ever read any of The Last Psychiatrist?
No, who is that by?
Oh, you got to check this guy out. You would love him. He quit writing in about 2013, but he had these very insightful meta level analytics of the culture, where he was diagnosing our culture as being a culture of narcissism.
Hmm.
And so what he would point out is something like one of the examples he'd point out is right now you have all sorts of women becoming senators in a period of history where senators have less and less power, and who are they married to? Their husbands are lobbyists, who are the ones with actual power. And so it's kind of similar. Like he's looking, where's the power and where's the appearance of power?
Yeah, I'd have to check the book out. I did. I've always I guess for me, Moldbug answered a lot of questions that had kind of been persistent in my mind for a very long time. Watching politics play out in my state of my home state, I guess, then and once again California. Although I've moved around a lot since then, and for that reason, I found it really useful. I think though today we're going to talk about the left versus right dynamics and just how things have evolved, or
Right. Because yeah, so that's just kind of the introduction where we talk about something nothing related to the rest of the show.
yeah.
I'll tell you what I've been really trying to do lately is
Mhm.
communicate with people on the left because we are reaching a state right now. There was a great article by Jim's blog
Mhm.
where he was kind of digging into this, talking about how like the communication's breaking down. There's increasing demonization, and this is the sort of stuff that precedes a major conflict or a civil war.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. But I mean, have you found many leftists that you can talk to? I find it incredibly difficult.
I'm sort of dating a hardcore feminist.
Wow. Well,
She hates me. It's wonderful. I hate her too.
Wow, I that's you're braver than I on that front. I just married a Catholic like myself. But
If
it's
I had any sense whatsoever.
yeah. Well, I don't know. To me, it's. I said this before. It does seem more and more, though, not to cast aspersions on your relationship, but it seems more and more that not only are we dealing with different ideologies, but we're also dealing with different types of people. On the right, you've got kind of like the risk averse worker bee, you know, religious type, maybe your occasional person like Molbug, your kind of iconoclastic intellectual. And then you've got on top of that, you get a bunch of people who have serious emotional and sociability problems that are kind of in the mix and making everything really, really difficult. And then on the left, you have a bunch of risk taking charlatans who are standing on top of media and academic empires, and then a bunch of really, really emotionally needy people who have glommed onto that power structure. And that's more or less what it seems like's going on, is an interaction between these two weirdly aligned coalitions, and no one can really make any inroads.
Yeah, I've been advancing a theory lately that that social media is intentionally designed to induce histrionic breakdowns in people.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, so we used to have an internet that it was very much walled gardens. It was forums. And so on the forum, you'd have certain rules about what you were allowed to talk about, and we all agreed upon the rules. And if you wanted to talk about something else, you headed to a different forum.
Yeah.
Well, now the way that social media is designed is it's like cramming cats and dogs into a small washroom together. And so you go onto social media, and what are you immediately bombarded by? You're bombarded by people that disagree with you, shouting, 140 character ignorant opinions that
Yeah.
piss you off.
And there's no way to get intelligent thought into like what is it? It's not. It's like 140. It used to be 140. Now I think it's
It's 280
280.
something.
Yeah, but it's impossible even with that character limit to get to good opinions.
So
You
if
know,
you're
prioritizes like quick owns and stuff like that.
exactly snappy comebacks. So if you're low neuroticism, like big five personality types, if you have low neuroticism,
Mm-hmm.
eventually you just kind of drift away from social media. Like I am completely tired of Facebook. I only really use Twitter as a kind of a communication hub with people like you that I sort of know. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like two steps removed from knowing you, right? But I
Yep.
don't care. It's like, oh, look, some idiot posted something stupid on Twitter. Like, whatever. I do not use the Twitter app because it's nothing but negativity. Whereas if you're very high in neuroticism, neurotic people constantly, did I leave the stove on? Did I leave this? They constantly need to check everything. And so they go on Twitter and they're bombarded with all these opinions that they disagree with, and it just drives them nuts. And I think there's suggestive evidence that people attracted to the left are higher in neuroticism than people attracted to the right.
I think that's true. I'd have to ask. Are you familiar with either Michael Woodsley or Dr. Edward Dutton?
No,
Both
no.
both professors. They're both professors. They both co-publish a lot, and they do a huge amount of research on um, personality relationships to genetics, big five personality traits, how cognition has gone down over time. That's Michael Woodsley's thing, and I'm sure they're very knowledgeable. Either one of them, they're very knowledgeable about how these personality traits impact different people. I think Edward Dutton on his channel, and he actually is an academic. He's written many papers
Academics, please
and books.
respond.
But he did a YouTube video, which was one of my favorite ones as of recently, which was about why it's easier for conservatives to be friends with progressives than progressives to be friends with conservatives. Uh, Apparently, according to, and I'm going to butcher his point here since it was fairly sophisticated, but according to Dutton, it seemed like progressives constantly register conservatives as being threatening to them, like at risk, right? And it has to do with the fact that they have this highly neurotic tendency. So I'm butchering the point, but it was very well made, and it's something that I always sort of wondered about is why why have I lost so many friends on the left, and the breakage of the relationship always comes from the left.
Well, and you know what? I'm not going to get too deep into my personal relationships, but the lady in question is quite worried about what her friends are going to think of her for for well whatever we're doing for seeing
Yeah.
a evil right wing Nazi shit lord whatever I am.
Yeah, and that's this. Their minds work like the Chinese social network does, where if you're friends with somebody who's on the bad list, then it kind of contagiously spills over to you. Maybe this is just the functioning of how highly neurotic brains works.
Okay, now the good news about this, I'll send you. I wrote an article about this. I'll send it to you. The good news about it is that the Chinese social network, this is going to backfire. Okay, like we're worried
Really?
that this is going to be the soft tyranny of
Oh,
social pressure.
can you hold that thought, guys? Can you not hear me right now? That would be really weird, but is maybe I was just standing too far from my microphone. But at any rate, yeah. So it looks like I need to turn up my audio. That's funny. It's up all the way. I'll turn my sensitivity up. Please continue.
Alrighty, yeah, and folks, tell us if the audio sucks.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's so hard to check audio
Well,
levels on OBS
nothing
before it actually happens.
nothing stays the same anymore. Okay,
Yeah,
you log into it one week, you log into the next week, everything's changed.
yeah, yeah. I had a problem just a few days ago because I installed an update and it was waiting to go through on a software package and apparently took my sound card offline. So I was hearing the audio from my browser, but no one else on the OBS could. So anyway, sorry I interrupted your point.
Oh, no worries. So the reason it's going to backfire is because what these social networks do is they induce they induce hysteria in the people that use them the most.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the sort of the silver lining of a black cloud. It's going to get worse before it gets better, but these social networks destroy the people that are obsessed over these social networks. So the people with the highest sesame rating on the Chinese social network are going to be those that are most neurotic and just out of control in their lives.
So you think they're going to kick off a new chapter of the Cultural Revolution where people are literally reporting their neighbors for infractions, and I mean that could certainly happen. You could see it getting out of control that way, right?
Let's see. People are saying I'm a lot louder than you. Can you drop the audio?
Yeah, I just did. I think it's on lag. So
Yeah.
okay,
There's
so
about
maybe that's better.
a.
Okay, I'll drop it a little bit more. This is Skype there for you. Okay.
Now, let's make no bones about it. Crazy people are dangerous, but crazy people are also self-destructive. And so I think the attempt to use these social networks to control the population, the people you control the most are going to be very, very self-destructive,
Mm,
which, and this goes back to that civil war that we're looking at.
yeah.
Um, and one of the mistakes people make, they think Civil War, they think the American Civil War. Well, the American Civil War was really a war between states. It was the North versus the South.
Mm,
Uh, a civil war, you want to look at the Spanish Civil War. You want to look at the Hutus versus the Tutsis. Okay? Actual civil wars are neighbor against neighbor.
yes. Which would, well, I suppose blue areas tend to be incredibly uniformly blue if we're imagining this breaking down into blue versus red type deals. So it's hard to imagine anything like that happening because it's so. And we have to sort of operate by analogy, and it's hard to understand what the analogy for war would be. There's I guess there are some instances where people are literally killing their neighbors or waging war against their neighbors, but I would say most civil wars have a regional component to them. Everyone has regions where they have more support and less.
It is regional, but like Spanish Civil War, the motto was "Viva la muerte,"
Mm-hmm.
long live murder.
So, but well, I mean, who had that banner? I'm kind of curious now. Was it any one of the anarchist or Stalinist factions, or was it the phalangists?
It was the anarchist, atheist, communist, the typical ones. I mean,
Okay, well that totally makes sense then, doesn't it?
ever since the French Revolution, the left has been, the peace-loving left has been all about genocide, and that's one of the really difficult things to try and explain to liberals is like you need to study your history. There's the propagandized version of the French Revolution, and then there's the actual one where they were raping nuns and murdering priests and cutting off the heads of anybody and everybody.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I have a question, guys. Is the audio still not listenable? I'm getting more reports about this. I've turned Davis down and myself up, so I would be really surprised if this is still a problem. Other than moving the microphone closer, I suppose I could do that as well. But please tell me if this is still an issue. Yeah, but I guess the left is. And this is sort of the problem as I see it. The left has been winning again and again and again until the left's victories are starting to become inevitable, and they're being seen as being inevitable. So regardless of how crazy all of their ideas are in any given point, it seems to behoove a person to move to the left regardless. I mean, transgenderism, it seems crazy, but the left always wins, so you might as well get on board with the right side of history. And this seems to be sort of driving our main issues, is that we can't possibly moderate, even if we are tending to slide to the left. And I'm not so sure what the way out of it is, because the left just seems, I don't know if this is your impression, the left seems so much more powerful than the opposition to the left at this stage. It's hard to know really where the power base is for the right, period.
Yeah. The lack of unity on the right, the lack of long-term planning and long-term action, the like one of the most frustrating things about the right is how the right is they're mistaking the parade for the war. Okay, your victory parade is what you have after you win the war.
Mm-hmm.
When the left has protesters out in the streets, that's because they've already won. All right,
Yeah.
the protester, they control the media. It's all set up. It's to oversimplify it. It's like they want to pass some sort of law, and the big business owners and the politicians, they all shake hands. It's like, okay, now we just need an excuse to pass the law. Have the protesters show up. Have the media show up and film the protesters. Make it look like there's 10 times as many as there actually are, and this will be justification for passing the law that destroys independent businesses but rewards, the connected large businesses, all in the name of the environment or whatever other cause.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. I mean, I think this is what maybe we were going to mention this before, but this was a lesson that the right seemed to not, or the alt-right seemed to not understand in Charlottesville. They seem to get this. In 2017, the alt-right had this bizarre idea that they could command power they didn't have by pretending like they had the power. And this doesn't seem to work, period.
No, and it's such a like again, this is one of these tragic examples, and this was I think I was kind of communicating on this, like trying to explain to somebody on the left, what was Charlottesville? You had a bunch of disenfranchised young men who are upset because the country that their fathers built isn't giving them a future. Their future is being mortgaged for the sake of outsiders, and they're upset about this. Now, instead of addressing, like you've got this big group of young men, mostly white, that are upset. Are you, as the ruler, are you going to try and address their concerns and harness their energy into something positive? Or are you going to insult them and demonize them and drive them into the hands of somebody like Richard Spencer?
Well,
And
it looks like they were in the hands of someone like Richard Spencer, and the demonization worked pretty well for the establishment. The narrative at Charlottesville was, I mean, the headlines basically wrote themselves, right? Murderous gang of neo-Nazis, murderous protester, News at 11.
listen, I'm not trying to attack Richard Spencer because there's like I disagree with him on a lot of stuff, but I've got better stuff to do than argue with him. I
I,
will
I've
say,
been I've been known as a prominent critic of Spencer. Full
I will say,
disclosure. Yeah.
oh, of course you are, because you're not an idiot. He has repeatedly proven himself to be a very poor tactical leader. He is good at certain things. He is a terrible, terrible leader that leads his men into ambushes.
Yeah, and this is but I mean I guess for the right and not just the alt right or whatever is left of it. I don't think the movement's even really alive anymore. It seems it has a hard the thing is their power in early 2017 seemed to come from the fact that they understood that the modern Republican Party and modern conservative movement just wasn't working. But the difficulty was, I think, what Charlottesville eventually proved is that nothing they were doing was working, and it worked even less well than what the Republicans were doing, and so it's hard to understand exactly what the right has to do to go forward. I think for people like me, it starts with and
Sorry, just go on.
people give me shit about this, but it starts with peaceful movements, focusing on academic and artistic work, building sort of an intellectual base. Because I don't see how you can build political power in this environment. I mean, in a sense, everything you do, every political action you take is building political power in the broadest sense. But I can't see how a large popular movement could work in the contemporary world. Of anything that looks like what the left ordinarily tries to do with Antifa or even the DSA. The DSA being Democratic Socialists of America. Locals though they are quite well organized and very popular.
So here's the thing. This is something I was talking about. I think this is actually why. I'll be honest. I don't think it was the left that got me kicked off of YouTube. I suspect it was somebody on the right that flagged me, because I've been pointing out for a while. This kind of goes back to that thing I was saying about Last Psychiatrist, where he was observing, like, these days lots of women are becoming politicians when politicians have no power, and lots of men are becoming nurses as the nursing profession becomes more and more professional, and a nurse has more and more influence and power over the medical process. Because, you know, men seek after power, women tend to seek after the trappings of power.
Yeah.
So what is power? These, like the group you just mentioned, I'm not intimately familiar with them, but they're not self-funded, are they?
Antifa?
Sure. Like
Or DSA is certainly not self-funded.
Exactly. They are getting the reason that these left-wing political organizations are so powerful is because they are funded by large business interests. Okay, and on the right, we're trying to self-fund all the time. Right? We're trying to have church bake sales to, you know, get buses so that people can march to defend a statue that the city itself wants to tear down.
Yeah, and then I mean, I guess the question is, oh, pardon me, creaky chair. I mean, the question is, you're not going to get corporate funding on the right. It's just not going to happen. Unless it's like some kind of Coach Brother, you know, we need to do more exploratory drilling in Yellowstone type deal. Like, unless it's that, you're not going to get corporate funding for the right. The capital that's coming out of Silicon Valley is decidedly woke. They're not afraid of the socialists and they like their style. So I guess the question is, you know, yes, money is power, but
Well,
we
and
don't
this
have
is what I
money.
was saying.
So
This
you
is
know,
what I was saying that was so unpopular. I was saying that we need to drop like politics is downstream of power. We need to get the power. We need to be looking at what actual power is. And power is business. Power is meaningful local networks. Power is, you know, trust and loyalty. It's families. It's all of these things. And here's the thing, like that doesn't satisfy the ego, right? Going on to Twitter and proving a feminist wrong or making a really snippy comment at somebody, that feeds the ego. You feel like a culture warrior, even though all you're doing is providing you're playing the role of the villain to radicalize the leftist.
yeah, I mean, well, I mean, obviously Twitter is just a scourge. I say that kind of being It does sort of rule my downtime, on buses and in airport terminals and stuff like that, and on coffee breaks. But it's a intellectual dead zone. I guess the challenge is, even in developing local communities, that's something that very few people can do. Even if you come from a red state community, you're not going to hear the kind of ideas you hear on the internet. You're not going to hear sort of a woke take or a based take on how power dynamics work. You're going to hear the standard Republican talking points, if that. And if you live in a blue area like I do, then you're going to be in trouble because who are you going to like? Basically, not only are people not interested, majority of people are absolutely hostile to right of center ideas, let
Oh,
alone ones that are radical.
one of the things I strongly recommend is finding the industries that aren't sexy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's the sexy industries that are going to be overridden with politics because they're people notice them. You want something that's not sexy. Like I'll give you one example. I know a guy. He and his brother have a side business.
Mm-hmm.
They rent sea containers.
Mm-hmm.
What a brilliant business! Like you can't really break a sea container. The thing's insured. You go to an auction, buy one for 20 grand, and and you rent it out to somebody to store their tools in on a job site. And
So a
the
sea container, are those the storage containers that are loaded onto big cargo ships and then are loaded onto trucks, or am I thinking of something
exactly.
else? Oh, those. Okay.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
use them. They get used for absolutely everything. I know another guy that runs a company where he takes sea containers and turns them into mobile trailers for the oil patch that have all the amenities of home. They've got like a Murphy bed that folds up.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a shower stall, and it's all in a sea container. So you can just put it on a truck and ship it anywhere it needs to go. See, these are the sort of businesses that they are not sexy.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cares about your politics. Nobody cares whether or not you approve of a certain parade in July. Nobody cares. Just give me a sea container and then F off,
I think
right?
those are great things. I'm not so sure. I think if you own your own business and it's a novel business and it's something only you do, I think that's a great lifestyle to pursue. I think that a lot of people, though, if you're talking about mass movements, it's not, you can't just hand that to somebody after high school and go like, oh, well, go start your own business, make sure it's something that no one else does and corner the market in that area. It's a very hard, it's a very tall order, and not everyone is the above 120 IQ, not risk averse people that you imagine as your ideal small business owner. And so if we're just conceding everyone who punches a card to implicitly live outside of any kind of right wing community, I think we're going to have a hard time substantially building a community outside of a small business organization size.
Let me address something from this. This kind of sums up what I'm getting at. Mike
Mm,
asked, "Why do we have to hide?" And let me put it like this, dude. Does being flagrant with my beliefs benefit me? Not really. Whereas making alliances, providing value, earning loyalty from people, that benefits me.
mm.
And the way you live, this is a little bit Kantian, but the way you live your life, like be the change you want to see in the world, live the way you want to see the world be, as opposed to joining a movement that has a really good slogan. I don't see movements as our solution moving forward. I see us actually practicing the virtues we preach being the way forward, and that doesn't involve shouting things out all the time to be a dick.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be, you want to, I mean, you want to marshal your power. But I mean, I don't find it surprising that people hide in my home state. If you're outspoken, it can cost you a lot professionally. And, if you're trying to make rent, that's not a small thing. Jobs aren't super plentiful here in the Golden State. So, I mean, I'm sure if you're very well qualified, you can find one. But it is tough. It's scary. I think that you don't want to take risks that you don't have to, and this is a mark of good leadership. You don't want to be risk averse, and I have to confess to being slightly risk averse myself. But at the same time, obtaining needless risk with no benefit is that's just I'm not going to talk about which leaders on the right I think do that, but I think that's something that a lot of people do a little bit too much.
Yeah, it's too easy
Yeah.
for us to armchair quarterback everybody else. This is why I don't like attacking people. And even Richard Spencer, I'll make specific critiques of him, but I won't go any further than that. Even though you can probably guess my opinion on him.
Well, yeah, and I guess I'll answer super chats at the end. But I don't know. I mean, where do you see this all going? I guess I don't know.
I
I'll
guess
get the question.
here's what really ticks me off about all this is it's just like civil war is just brewing right now. It's pissing me off because I'm looking at buying a new car in the next few months, a really, really nice car that I really, really like. I'm going to put classic plates in my old girl. She's such a good car, but good Lord, she's like, I like my women like I like my cars from the 90s and real pieces of shit. Um, yeah, I love her, but it's time to get a new car. And I don't want a civil war. Like my life's going pretty well right now, and seeing this radicalization going on is it's ticking me off, which is why I'm trying to find the vernacular to communicate to liberals. Like one of the things one of the challenges I would have for a liberal is okay, make that same critique without using the word racist, because racist has become such a fuzzy word. Like this is the issue with the liberal thought at present. It's all built upon sand. Like the words they use are so fuzzy. Objectification. Okay, what does that word mean? Racist. What does that word mean? Because it has 20 different definitions. And
It ultimately doesn't mean anything other than bad person when you break it down and actually look at it.
and you know what? Maybe the person they're pointing to is a bad person, but tell me they're bad without saying racist. Use other words to define how they're being bad and what is bad about it, and how, like, what is the harm being created beyond your fifis.
I'll say this: I don't think the left can do that, but I don't think it ultimately matters in the dialectic. I think that people function on symbols mostly and on meaning in a sort of secondary fashion. So I know I've done a lot of
Okay,
videos on this. I call these words magical words, words that don't really have any consistent meaning other than the emotional one that's supposed to confer whether a person's bad or good. But at the same time, these things have been around for a long time, and they don't seem to be really going anywhere, regardless of the fact that the left gets called on this all the time.
listen, do you want to know how normal people think? The normie conformie? I was listening to the radio the other day, and the radio jerk was just reading a bunch of facts, just a bunch of facts. And he said, "Okay, here's another one. So Monday is the best day to buy a new car." I'm like, "Okay, interesting. Why is that?" Doesn't he? He just goes on to something. Doesn't even provide a theoretical, made-up justification for this complete bullshit statement. He just says it, and people, oh, okay, I guess Monday's when I should buy a new car. This is how normal people think.
Yeah, that's the reality of it, and I think that what the right has to do is it has to sort of get out of complaining about how normal people think and sort of try to create systems that actually deal with where ordinary people are, right? We're not going to, you're
This
not going
is
to argue people out of liberalism for the most part. You're not going to argue people out of progressivism for the most part. Most people can't understand arguments that are very complicated.
well, and this is why any movement, any attempt to create a movement, is doomed to failure. Because a movement is just a slogan and a charismatic leader. That's what the left does. Buy your cars on Monday. That's their movement. What we need is to manufacture systems of hierarchy. And the way you do that is by accruing power. Like your average person is like very few people like to think for themselves, right? They go along with the flow. And so what we ought to be doing is creating positive, healthy systems that are good for society, good for our community, good for us, and good for those that are our employees or are whatever, right? But hierarchical. systems. You'll find, like, listen, do the guys that work in the oil patch tend not to like environmentalism because they
Yeah.
work in the oil patch, right? If you treat people well, you get loyalty out of them. And that's doing something like that is how, like, it's not a movement where we wave, tiki torches that we bought at Walmart, manufactured in China by slave labor. It's actually doing something with an income stream.
I guess the question is, what are the specifics of that? I can see what that means for somebody who's starting their own business. I don't know what to tell somebody who's working a job, starting a family, and is not going to have a huge amount of disposable income. The professionals that I know and meet every day, they're the difficulty with being on the right is that you're dealing with a lot of people who are not full-time activists. I always make this joke. I compare myself to the YouTuber ContraPoints, who's kind of the hottest YouTuber on the left, who I think recently paid for a very expensive gender transition surgery.
Oh,
And
no.
and I made the joke that conservatives have kids, progressives in this sphere have gender transition surgeries, and the thing is that having a child, especially if you're a conservative, puts you in a very different position. It's not a cosmetic surgery. Comes with obligations that need to be respected, and where you have to put a lot of elements of your life on hold, and because of that, it's we can't just go ball. You can't go, no pun intended. We can't go balls to the wall, the way the left does, and just sort of commit ourselves to being full time fundraisers and activists. That's not going to work for a lot of people. Now, I suppose if we have people who are just rolling in cash, that kind of works. But the difficulty, I think, is that the majority of right sympathetic people have lives that are don't have a very wide margin, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, absolutely. Do you watch Owen Benjamin at all?
I did a while back. I don't really watch him periodically. I know he
It's
kind
so
of had
much.
a yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, he creates so much content. I kind of like tune in, tune out every so often. And it's easy to miss. Like, well, like welcome to the age of live stream, you know. But there's something he was pointing out several months back that I thought was very insightful, and that's, like, so one of the principal beliefs of Catholics is that the prince of this world is the devil,
Mm,
and that pursuing power, pursuing worldly power. I said power earlier. I should have said authority. So there's a slight
mm.
difference there. But pursuing worldly power, you wind up playing his game. Like, the only way to become powerful is to take that poison chalice and take a sip.
Well, right now we are making a big distinction between power and authority and what distinguishes the two of them. Because I believe, from my own perspective, that a lot of Christians have been kind of hoodwinked into not participating in politics because of this whole, the saints were pacifists, early Christian communities were pacifists, song and dance, which I don't believe is particularly true. Well, I mean, it's true to a
That's
sense.
like
There were a
saying
lot of pacifist saints, but there were also in the early medieval ages were saints that were political, that stood up and fought for their countries.
that's like
And
saying Gandhi was a pacifist. No, pacifism was just the strategy that was most effective for him. He
oh,
was a
I think Gandhi was actually an absolute pacifist. I mean, that's not the example you wanted, but for the most part, most pacifists are strategic pacifists, like myself, right?
Mhm.
Most people aren't absolute pacifists, but there were people like Charlemagne. To me, Charlemagne and before him the Merovingian kings were an essential part of the story of Christendom. Without Charlemagne, you don't get the great saints of the Middle Ages. Christian men have to take action in order to ensure that an ordered existence comes about.
And this is what I'm getting at. Where did the Merovingians come from?
They
They
were
were
barbarians.
they were small time, like, Roman lords, Roman,
Frankish.
magistrates of a small farming community that as the winter of civilization advanced and the centralized power and influence of government corroded, they, then there was more barbarism, more chaos outside. They became centers of security and economy. So a lot of
Mm.
people voluntarily came onto their estates to be farmers and like because it was safe under the Merovingians. And so they were just, kind of smart merchants back in, 400 AD, and over the next 400 years, they eventually get Charlemagne becomes the guy that reignites Christian civilization. And I think we're at the 400 AD point,
I'm getting
right?
a correction from the chat on me. Someone says that you were right about Gandhi being a strategic pacifist. Naria 11. Okay,
See,
Naria.
some argue that if there were no mass media,
Well,
and if people back in Britain wouldn't have been upset, if like he would have been happy bombing people as well. It's just that he was smart enough to figure out that laying down and forcing the British troops to try and murder people,
hmm.
that was the right strategy then. Right
well,
now, they would absolutely love a chance to murder us, so it's not the right strategy right now.
well, yeah. I don't know if this is an apocryphal quote, but I do remember a quote being attributed to Gandhi where he said that the Jews should have committed suicide to protest their oppression in Germany, which doesn't seem like it would be very effective in to protest the SS. But I don't know, neither here nor there. Perhaps Gandhi was a strategic pacifist as well. But at any rate, just to go back to the medieval analogy, I guess to kind of bring that to the present day. I guess what we're saying is that the type of power you want are people that can organize and make guarantees of security. Now that would be something. If I could join some kind of guild or union of reactionaries that would protect me from being harassed due to my political beliefs, I probably would join that in a heartbeat. I don't know if that would be the analogy of nobles during the Merovingian age, uh, trying to protect regional merchants and farmers. But I don't know. What do you think that? Uh, what do you think that's that that Oh, and by the way, the Merovingian stuff doesn't come from Molbug; it comes from Spengler. But
As long as we're not talking about Vampire the Masquerade.
are there Merovingians and Vampire the Masquerade or something?
It's something like Merovingian. Oh
There's
man,
a
I've
character
lost a lot
called
of friends.
there's a character
That
called the
rings a bell.
Merovingian in the Matrix too.
The oh god, the first movie was actually good.
Well, yes, it
I'm kind
was.
of embarrassed to admit that I like the first movie these days.
Well,
Um,
here I will actually quote Molbug. The Wachowskis can't make movies, but genius is genius, and The Matrix is the work of genius. So I guess accidental genius must actually be a thing.
you know what? Sometimes it's lightning in a bottle, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell the Merovingian was, or let's we could just
Well,
go on.
don't worry about the character from The Matrix. Well, but I was just wondering, how do you think the model would translate into? I mean, like, how do you think the model of protection would translate into sort of a more contemporary context?
The issue I found is trying to create a right wing organization. It's like, okay, what does the right wing organization do?
Mm-hmm.
See, if you have a left wing organization, you know what it does. You find anything good and true and beautiful, and you find a way to claim that it's hurting people, and you destroy it.
And
It,
you
it
also get money out of the people who you're taking it from, which is that's the key step that the right hasn't figured out how to do anything about yet.
exactly. Whereas a right wing organization, what in God's name would a right wing organization do? Say that we should keep a statue? You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of a contradiction in terms. And I think that, like, listen, we all were raised on this media celebrating the left wing revolutionary, right? Like, we all grew up on this, and we might explicitly disagree with the politics of these left-wing revolutionaries, but we saw these movies where they were depicted as heroic and brave and exciting,
Hmm.
and deep down we all want to be that. I want to be that. You know what? Like Rage Against the Machine came on the radio when I was driving home the other day, and I rocked out to it, even though they're a bunch of filthy anti-American left-wing idiots. I still
I think Rage Against the Machine is unconsciously pretty reactionary. I mean, I think Zach De La Roche was essentially channeling sort of black nationalism more than he was anything that resembled communism, which in my book is closer to it's closer to being right wing than it is to being left in a lot of ways.
and that's why I can still listen to them. But the machine wants you to rage against it. You know,
Mm.
like I hate the machine so much. I went to Hot Topic and bought a T-shirt that says I hate the machine. Uh,
Mm.
it's good. Like, this is what Kaczynski writes about. Like the greatest trick the machine played is making these feminists and black nationalists think that they're fighting it when they're strengthening the system,
Mm.
right? And the way you fight the system is you stop playing the game. You walk away from it and you start creating a network that generates its own, like that has its own magic, that makes the
Mm.
magic go, that other people want to join because it's just such a great place to be.
I would argue that it's the network. That's the first step that needs to sort of fall in place for the right. If anything is going to move forward. It seems that you're always sort of looking for the first thread to unravel the sweater. To me, it's the networking that is that first thread, and I can't see how to get in any other way. It seems that every other necessary thing that people on the right talk about presupposes the existence of something we don't have. We don't own the corporate class. We don't own the opinions of people who are being churned out of professional institutions and who are trained to be leaders. If they're apolitical, they're going to kind of lean left more than they are right. We don't own the political apparatus outside of the presidency and sometimes Congress, which, when it really comes down to it, is a small part of the political apparatus. And so you're sort of struggling for, we certainly don't own the media or educational institutions. And so oftentimes when people say about what they should do, they're always like, well, where do you start? To me, the only place to start is with networking. That's my biggest question: is why isn't there already a network where I live that hooks up people that are broadly on what I would call as the distant right? Why isn't there a network that allows us to see and communicate with each other and share project ideas?
Okay, then now listen. This is a little bit autobiographical.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've become pretty cynical about people on the right after some personal experiences. So, take this with a grain of salt. I'm probably overstating the
Mm-hmm.
case, but there is truth to it. Uh, as I said, like we all want to be Rage Against the Machine. We all want to be Gandhi from that movie that they made us watch back in high school. Like that drums itself deep into our synapses. Even if we disagree with Gandhi, our deep down emotionally, it drilled its way into us. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of guys on the right that rather than going out and winning, they want to blame the system for their failures. And when you start talking about forming a real network with people accomplishing things and getting their act together and helping one another up, giving one another a hand up, and working together to really accomplish something awesome, there's a lot of people out there that become immediately threatened because they can't. They won't put forth the effort to win. They
Mm-hmm.
would rather complain about the left, but then continue to indulge in the juvenile habits that are so common amongst our generation these days.
Well, because it's an entertainment product, that's the real danger. And I think even some creators have fallen into this trap. You kind of get addicted to the very social media that you're using as a tool, and it kind of starts to begin to dominate you. And then more when you're on the opposite end, you're looking at things, you're seeing yourself more as an audience member than you see yourself as an activist. And I think that's oftentimes the issue. I think the left is having this problem too. It's just that they're so far ahead that the growing laziness and indolence and uselessness of their own side isn't really going to hurt them as much as it's not as felt as keenly as it is by the right.
It's interesting. Okay, let's use some white pills for all the black pills. It's interesting how
Paging Steve
quickly,
Turley. Go ahead.
like things that like people get burned out so fast. Like the social media fire, because the social media connects everything. You don't get a slow burn. You get an instant conflagration, but then it burns through everything, and and there's like nobody cares about the latest controversy after 2 months. Sometimes 2 weeks.
I mean, we'll forget about Epstein dying or being murdered or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And T minus. Yeah, I give it like 2 weeks and people won't mention it.
It's well, I mean, like, what is there to say about it? Like, yeah, we know he was given an offer he couldn't refuse. The system came to him and said, "All right, buddy, you've been caught. Take the honorable way out." Quote unquote honorable.
Yeah, and well, I'm not going to go on, but Epstein has everyone basically reaching for their tinfoil caps, so it's it's bizarre.
Well, and it does point towards desperation, like desperation that they're going to be exposed. It's I don't know. We're living in such a weird time because I mean, society only works because people believe it works. There there aren't enough police officers to enforce the will of the state. The only reason a cop can be a cop is because we all believe in law and order. But when you start seeing things like Epstein, you start seeing these high level, like just absolutely atrocious crimes being committed.
Mm-hmm.
Then, what happens to law and order? What happens? Like, currency only works because everybody believes money is worth something. The moment we stop believing in money, you get massive hyperinflation and the economy collapses.
And I guess at that stage, the government's going to collapse. But the question is anything going to happen until then? And because if you wait till everything collapses, well, I don't know. To
The
me, it's
other
sort
white pill. Mhm.
of go ahead, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say the other white pill I would toss out there is as weird as everything is right now. I get the strong sense that the people with the levers of power, they actually do understand the consequences of nuclear war. They like on the one hand, okay, the black pill is that even something like World War One or Two right now, like minus the nuclear weapons, would absolutely destroy civilization. Right now, we are so reliant upon the internet, not so that you and I can BS and folks
Mm,
can listen. We're reliant upon the internet so we can buy groceries.
yeah.
The debit card needs the internet to work. The internet is necessary for the central distributions plant to get lettuce to all of the grocery stores in your region.
Mm,
So when you had the breakdown of World War II with cities being bombed, people still had physical money. They could still go shop. They could still do things. With electronic money, you have the power grid go out for a week. You have rioting in every single city where that happens. And there's also the fact the electrical grid is very, very sensitive. There's something called a cascade failure. When one station goes down, okay, the rest of the stations will compensate for that. Two stations now are getting iffy. Three, now you get a cascade failure, everything goes down. That's what we saw a few years ago in New York, or not a few years. It was like, good Lord, I'm old. I was on a military base when it happened. The power went out for about 20 minutes before the backup generator kicked on. The entire eastern seaboard went dark in Canada and the United States, and that was a cascade failure. And it only lasted for like 24 or 48 hours. Imagine that wasn't a generator or like one station going. Imagine that was a dozen going.
mm. Yeah, I mean, you can imagine a lot of ways that the system could just collapse on itself because our leaders are really, really incompetent.
Well, I think the leaders know that, which is why there's this so slow simmer to war, but we haven't had, I was predicting war 2 years ago.
Hmm.
And it should have happened 2 years ago. But every time we get to the brink, something's pulling it back.
Well, you have to imagine that these people have contingency plans, and I mean, it's always this is the thing. You can always it's easier to tell a system is unsustainable than it is to understand when it's going to fail. Like it's quite obvious that our system is not sustainable, but it could take like 70 years for it to fail. Uh, Systems can there's this bizarre element of history where unsustainable systems have this ability to kind of soldier on indefinitely. I mean, how long did it take Rome to legitimately fall? I mean, the cracks were, it was really obvious that Rome was going to fall, I would say, after the Emperor Commodus, but it took like 200 years for it to collapse in the West.
Oh,
Like, it took an
that's
amazingly long time, right? So
that's where we
it's,
are.
yeah.
I mean, we've got a reality TV star for president of the United States who insults people on Twitter for crying out loud.
Yeah, it's a decadent society. I totally agree. I just think that that it's still the open question is, you know, because we know it's going to collapse, we don't know when it's going to collapse, and that therein lies the sort of rub of the matter, as Shakespeare might say, right? We can't prepare for something we don't know when it's going to happen. If you buy rations and it happens in 30 years, a lot of your rations are going to go bad by then. You know, so on and so forth, right?
And listen, there may or may not be exciting events in the near future,
Mm-hmm.
but barring something extreme like thermonuclear war, the system isn't going to quote unquote collapse. The system is collapsing. This is what it looks like, and it takes a few centuries to play out.
Mm.
And so, like, what we ought to be doing is, and I've been saying this for years, uh, we should be looking 400 years in the future. 400 years in the future is when Christendom kickstarts itself back into high gear. We
Mm.
are in the winter of civilization. Technology is going to keep going and increasing. You know, during the Dark Ages, technology kept getting better. There was,
Military technology certainly did.
oh yeah,
I mean, technology will get better, and maybe my next video is largely going to be a video on what you can do, and I'm currently in the process of recording it. It's a recording of some documents I wrote for a server a while back. I just think it's time to release them, but it's just given where technology is going, it's kind of hard to see exactly whatever anything like that's going to look like, right? I'm struggling with it myself, right? Because we're in this mode where we're unsustainable, but there's no one wants to pull the trigger on anything.
yeah, and you know what? It's the world's going to do what it's going to do. Don't be a Gaddafi. See, Gaddafi decided to play the game of power and try and start trading his oil for gold. And that really pissed off the United States because it threatens the petrodollar. And so Gaddafi got raped to death. You know, and he
Mm.
wasn't a good guy. I mean, I wish we'd left him there because he was the one holding back the flood of migrants to Europe. But like that's what happens when you play the Game of Thrones. You
Mm.
know, you wind up dying a villain. So like the system is going to keep doing what it's going to keep doing, and like the good news is like AI is not a real thing. All right, AI is nothing but spreadsheets.
Mm.
Artificial intelligence is nothing but really, really advanced search functions on spreadsheets. Okay, it works on stupid people. It doesn't have to work on you. And
Mm.
so there's so much opportunity right now. And like you mentioned networking, I have networks. There are people I network with. And
Mm.
occasionally we'll sit around, have a few drinks, and joke about how stupid the liberals are. But most of the time we're talking about, so, we're thinking about putting a business together. Do you see, like, there's a major opportunity right here. And by the way, Davis, your skills with the software thing that, we'd like you to do that, and
Mm.
this guy will do that. And I got a buddy over in Africa who is, working on this thing right here. And like, I've actually got networks.
No,
And
I mean, I think
that's what we should
that's
be
really
doing.
good. But I guess that what in addition to sort of like closed business networks, I think what people are waiting for is more open high capacity networks such that anybody who wanted to ideologically contribute to a movement could immediately get plugged in and learn and grow in that environment. I think that's sort of what I think. Business networks are really awesome. Private networks are really awesome, but what the left has right now is not just simply relational networks. They have high capacity pipelines that sort of push young people into certain positions in their movement as they go through the system. And I think there needs to be an alternative sort of high capacity open network to confront that.
You know what? Here's the thing: the leftists that you see running around, the black bloc anarchist, the Antifa. This is like this is the final sewer grate of the leftist network. Like these guys are the products of the entire thing. They look really prominent. They get to knock over garbage cans and set them on fire, but ultimately they are being exploited by the system as well. Like there's no future in being a black bloc anarchist. If you study the lives of most of these people, their lives are miserable. They have no money. They're mooching off of welfare, their parents. Like their lives suck. The only good thing about being an Antifa is that one time in 3 months where you get to have a riot and throw a bike lock at a right winger's head. And
Yeah.
like we should not be admiring. We should be pitying these people. Like that's a shitty life.
No, it's hard. I think, and a lot of people, it's hard to. I think the right needs to offer alternatives to that. I should say, and of course, you're not going to get these people. They're not looking for right alternatives, but at the same time, if we could provide an alternative where people actually did participate in their societies and made something of themselves, that would be something. I guess I'm not so sure exactly how to accomplish that, but
like going back to just basic Christian values, which is not like, yeah, Christianity is not a pacifist religion. I end my live streams with Deus Vult for a reason, but it's also not a war-like religion. Christianity is about doing good things and improving the lives of others and contributing to society, like being that change that you want to see in the world.
I would also say there's a necessary spiritual component in relationship with Christ in there as well. But yeah, I agree. It's about proactive change, and political activism I think is a necessary component of a proactive change. It's irresponsible to shirk politics if you're a Christian or a Christian activist in this world. And because of that, I think that's what a lot of these boomer people miss when they try to use Christianity as a bludgeon against right wing politics and all this stuff. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I might start reading some of the super chats since we're at the 1 hour mark.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, great.
That's
So,
nice.
yeah, John Smith for $2 says you should check out the channel Kenneth Brown. Sounds familiar, but I never actually heard it. I think Davis is in the other room, but I'll keep on going since we have a lot of super chats. For $5, Tom Bombadil. This episode of The Distributionist, why do everyone call me that who doesn't watch this channel, is sponsored by watching my mom go black. Well then, if that's your thing, I guess so. I don't know.
Tom Bombadil, last time we spoke, you apologized to me for your behavior. Stop backsliding, Tom.
Do you know who Kenneth Brown is?
The guy literally knows E. Michael Jones personally and claims to be a Christian. Please, Bombadil, act like one.
Yeah, so do you know who Kenneth Brown is?
I have not heard of him.
I'll have to check out the channel. Go.
Yeah, somebody leave a comment explaining who he is.
Um,
God, I miss the comments, man. I miss the super chats and all that.
Yeah, man, it's terrible. The YouTube purges are kind of nuts.
I mean, like part of me is glad I got kicked off of YouTube because I'm sick of being important. I don't want to be important. I just want to have a nice car and a very witty girlfriend. I want to do real stuff, but at the same time, I miss it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I have a scheduled hiatus coming off, so people will get a sample of what 6 months without the Distributist is like. Whenever come about November. So for $2, the Dashing Rogue says, "Sup, Aurini? Shout out to the best paladin ever." Is that your character on Dungeons and Dragons, or?
I always play paladins. Even
Oh,
with
okay.
Call of Cthulhu, I play a paladin.
Call of Cthulhu?
Oh, have you never played it?
No, I play Arkham Horror, like the board game, but
Oh,
like I didn't know you could. Isn't it like in the 20s or something like that?
yeah, typically you can set it whenever,
Okay.
right? But it's Call of Cthulhu is all about horror. Like the
Hmm.
best, like you don't play Call of Cthulhu without dying at the end. Even if you
Yes.
win, you're going to die at the end. Um, but yeah, I'm Hey, Orlando Furioso. I live up to the stereotypes of a paladin. Paladins aren't good people. We're just ridiculous. That's all.
Well, that's oh man, it's been such a long time since I played any type of role playing game. It's something to keep on the back burner. For $2, Tom Bombadil. Okay, here we go. Has Tyr told Arini how to complete German idealism? That's definitely one of a question directed at you, Mr.
Yeah,
Arini.
I
So,
don't know what German idealism is.
when I hear German idealism, I think of Hegel. Does someone else have an author? And hey, I wish I knew more about Hegel. I've read,
I know the Hegelian dialectic. It's been abused by the left, but I
yeah, I mean,
don't.
it basically is the left because it's what Marxism is. Marxism is
Yeah,
a materialization of an idealistic philosophy. Uh,
I don't think Hegel was an evil man. I think that there's a lot of truth to what he wrote,
mhm.
but it's been heavily abused. I think it might have been a little bit overly simplistic. I mean, like, you're Catholic as well, right?
Yeah, I'm Catholic.
Okay, so you and I can agree that Plato was brilliant, but Protestants absolutely abused the hell out of Plato, and they need some Aristotle in their life. Go read rhetoric.
Yeah, well, I had to actually check up on that. I guess it's a reference to Thomism or something like that. But anyway,
No, but paladins aren't good. No, dude, paladins aren't good people. They're just given holy powers, and they love fighting evil. Okay, they're not good people. The good people are the peasants that just work the land and are humble. Okay, paladins are idiots. Okay, that my paladin almost dies about twice per game session because I Leroy Jenkins everything.
well, I have to say, if we're combining Lovecraft with paladins, I can't help but think of another pulp crossover in Solomon Kane, which is my kind of ideal of a paladin who would fight Eldritch horror or whatnot.
I play a like obviously not a paladin per se, but I play a Catholic that completely rejects the elder gods because Christ is the one true king and is unafraid of dying. But at the same time, it's very strategic because you're always playing broken people in Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
So I accept the fact that like the one guy I trust the most is a complete psychopath that will murder me in my sleep if he gets half a chance. And the medic is actually a complete sadist, but we need to torture one of these people to get the information to save the world. So I'm going to let the sadist torture the evil person and look away. It's Call of Cthulhu is a good game.
Well, I play a very similar game that's called Arkham Horror. It's like the board game equivalent. Okay, so $5 from Paul Cornelius. Strangely, just finished rereading Name of the Rose when you read your Umberto Eco's fascism essay. Now on the Prague Cemetery. Thoughts on the author's fiction? I used to really like Umberto Eco. I like the Name of the Rose, and when I met Dominicans, I realized that it was essentially an anti-Catholic screed. Um, I also liked Foucault's Pendulum and Isle of Lost Dreams, although I don't think I finished Isle of Lost Dreams. He's full of himself. He thinks he's really smart, and so a lot of his novel is just trying to convince you, the reader, that he's really smart. But his plots are fairly compelling. He's a good writer, even though I think it's translated from Italian. I don't know. Any comments on this author?
I haven't read him. Could
Yeah.
I dive into a little bit of the Plato
Oh
Aristotle?
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So the thing about Plato, like, listen, and I'm criticizing somebody that's a lot smarter than I was, okay, or I am.
Hmm.
Um, so the thing with Plato is that he's an idealist. He's a utopian. He literally wrote a proposal for the perfect society, okay, and even his best attempt to make utopia sound good sounds like an absolute nightmare to me. Plato absolutely rejected rhetoric as nothing but flim-flam. Um, Aristotle saw that, like, the error in this. See, what is rhetoric? Okay, like we had the medieval education system, the trivium, where you studied grammar, which is like your basic facts, the basic way that words work. You have logic, which is how you combine words, you combine facts to produce something new. Rhetoric is when you put it onto the road and make it go and make it sexy as all hell.
It's
Uh,
social engineering in a word.
it is, but see, we live in a. This is part of living in a fallen world. Is that you can't, like I heard a really good term. It was about the Star Wars, what's going on with Star Wars, but it was Bolshevik marketing. Bolshevik marketing is where you say, comrade, the best boot should have steel shank and good leather to keep feet dry and whatever. So you make a boot that you think is the best boot, but nobody wants it, but you force everyone to consume it, right?
Mm.
That's Bolshevik marketing. That's Platonic philosophy. What boot is best boot? Oh, we make best boot and everyone wears it.
Mm.
Whereas Aristotle, with rhetoric, recognizes that we live in this imperfect world. There is information disparity. Like that's what rhetoric is.
Mm.
Rhetoric is I have all the facts and knowledge, but I'm going to selectively present some of them to you to change your mind using
Yes.
emotional triggers. Now, if I'm doing that from a place of honesty, it's a good thing. Like I'm going to use rhetoric to titillate my girlfriend because I actually, would like her to be more than a girlfriend.
Mm.
You can also use rhetoric for evil. We all know like the scammy used car salesman. We all know like the guy. It's like, oh baby, I love you. Just let me slip it in. We all know that. But we live in a world with imperfect information. Communism and Platonic philosophy is the pretense of having perfect information.
Mm.
Whereas rhetoric and Catholicism admits that, yeah, we're all just idiots trying to make it through life. So you get like this Protestant utopianism and intolerance and purity spiraling. And inevitably, what you find with the different Protestant cults is that they pick one value as the ultimate value. With some, it's chastity is the ultimate value. And they get these creepy promise rings that they wear for their dad. With others, it's the doctrine of the prosperity gospel, where, see, when you are a good person, you tend to get rewarded financially, but they pervert that into the amount of money you have proves how holy you are.
Yeah,
So
that's just like a total perversion of like that's a dirty heresy, as one of my priest friends would used to say.
Mhm. And you get that with every Protestant cult, is they take one virtue and they say this is the best virtue. Whereas the Catholic view and the Aristotelian view is that it's a multidimensional, it's an interrelated, it's a complex thing. And and we're all just idiots trying to work our way through the life to try and be good to people. And
Mm.
use rhetoric, like put on the flashy outfit to attract some ladies, but do it because you want to marry them, not because you just want to use them.
Well, that's. I need to get on with the super chats here. For $5, Bubblegum Gun says anarcho corporatism is realist the way labor is worthless. Capital and the decentralization of currency. Crypto is a threat to petrodollar/government. Well, I'm not so sure about the first statement. I have to say that I have high hopes for crypto, but it hasn't really panned out because of its massive instability. It's operating more as if it's a hold on currency markets.
I made $8 investing in crypto.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I didn't invest
if you know
much.
that global currencies or reserve currencies are going to sink, then you can then buy crypto. But it's not something that anyone can use because no one knows how much anything is worth.
Yeah, actually, this is just something like the viewers might want to look into. The idea of a mature market. Um, like if Las Vegas didn't exist, what
Mm-hmm.
would you set the odds at I don't know. You don't know. We have no idea. Like
It would you set the odds to do what?
where do you put the odds on the slot machine to make people they win often enough that they want to put more in? But they like what do you do to set
It's
up?
kind of like a reverse one-armed bandit problem. I mean, I think usually, I mean, you could literally see it on the roulette wheel, right? The roulette wheel it pays it pays like double for an odd that's slightly less than 50% because of the existence of the green squares. So you can see it, the casino is literally playing the odds on a few percentage points usually.
But that's the thing is you have to make it attractive enough that people want to play it, but profitable. And there's so much information that goes into designing those odds to make it fun to play. And this is with any marketplace, right? Like we're talking about Vegas, which is gambling, which is the rawest form of marketplace. But with any other marketplace, what should a Coca-Cola cost? Right? You need a mature market. You need like decades of study going into this to even understand what the hell a market is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it would. I mean, I don't know. We have to redesign all that stuff. We went to crypto.
Well, and that's like we don't know what crypto is. The thing is, like, yeah, each cryptocurrency has a finite number of units, which is very, very good for a currency. But there's an infinite number of cryptos, which kind of like
No, there
it's
isn't
kind of
though. There
pisses
isn't
away
a,
the first one.
there is not an infinite number of cryptos. There eventually will be no more bitcoins because of how the algorithm works.
No, what I'm
Uh,
saying is like there's a finite number of bitcoins.
but people can invent new algorithms. I see.
Exactly. So the ideal currency is completely limited. The problem with gold is that, like the Spanish go explore the new world and find a whole bunch more gold, and they crash the gold market and throw all of Europe into economic chaos because of that. So the great thing about crypto is it's finite, but at the same time it's infinite. And so, like, what is crypto? We don't know what crypto is. Aside from buying drugs from China, what is it good for?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The stability is an issue. $2 from Eldrick Fan. Red Cloth is so jealous. I have no idea what that means. Well, I'll just
I apologize. It looks like drama from a year ago infested your comment section.
well, don't worry. I have to wind this down in about 10 or so minutes. So we're just gonna get through the super chats. So $5 for Charlemagne. Trudel Tom seems to have suddenly disappeared. It looks like he privated his videos. Ghosting is a big problem we have on the right. Hopefully he's okay. Well, yeah, if we lose Trudel Tom, that will be a huge blow. Trudel Tom, do you know this YouTuber?
No, I
He's
can't subscribe to people anymore. That's what's
yeah. I'm sorry. He's sort of like a neo-reactionary, sort of like Nick Land, neo-absolutist type. I don't know if he's committed to any of those principles, but his YouTube channel is dedicated to exploring those ideas. Everyone. I don't. I mean, he doesn't commend them, but he just describes them, which is why you get things like bio-Leninism, which probably those might uh, those might be scary videos if you're living in England or whatever. That's really bad. I mean, this is the thing. Like, if you can have a really good content provider and then all of a sudden they just disappear into thin air and private all their videos, it just sends a very powerful and demoralizing message. It makes nobody want to participate in the community because you don't have, your ancestors have all been taken out of the game. They've demonstrated that they've been destroyed.
well,
And
you know what it is? They're taking away our ability to talk to one another. It's not just they're taking away our super chats or whatever. They're taking away, like, you and I are having an interesting conversation right now, and I have lots of other friends in this rough sphere. They just started blogging because they wanted to talk with other people, and when the silencing happens, it's not just you got your cart, like your soapbox taken away. You got your ability to talk to people taken away.
I mean, it is. this is what they want, though, and it works for the establishment very well, and it works for the left very well. So I wish I could figure out a problem with this. I always tell people, try to not go silent if you have to. I mean, that's always the problem, because if you feel like you're under attack by Antifa and they're going to dox you and try to get you fired and destroy your life, you can't leave a message to your followers going, "Hey guys, I'm not going away. I'm here blogging. Follow me there and watch for updates for my return," because then Antifa will glom onto that and the hunt will still be on for you there. It's not it creates this dynamic where Antifa can quite easily take out most people who don't make a living off of the internet.
You want to hear something funny? I
Yeah.
was talking with a Asian coworker, and I was trying to explain to him what Antifa were, and he's like, "What? Why would they do this? What motivates them?" And I finally said, "Do you remember back during the Maoist revolution when they were killing school teachers?" It's like, "Oh, the Red Guard. Yeah, okay, now I understand what Antifa is." Like I spent 10 minutes trying to explain it. As soon as I said Red Guard, click. It's like, "Oh, those people."
Yeah, I mean it's this is one thing I said at the end. I did a video on the DSA, I think last night, maybe I forget. um, I think the sentiment I left people with is these people look like idiots, and maybe they are individually, but collectively and the institutions they represent through their combined anger are very, very dangerous. And,
They
and when their
are,
wrath operates as a collective, it can be very destructive for you as an individual. And it's
guys.
just something to be very aware of when you do these things, when you take these people on.
But here's the thing. Nobody in the real world gives a shit about them.
Well,
Like,
yeah, they do.
real.
Corporations. I mean, like for instance, like Jared Holt. Like, I know he's not technically Antifa, but he like winks. He winks at them, and corporations listen to people like that. If he doxes somebody, if he goes like, "Oh well, guess what, Mister Google? Unless you want to be associated with millennial woes, you'll do X, Y, and Z to his accounts." And or I guess Twitter in that case. He can say things like that, and these multinational corporations will listen. And if multinational corporations are listening to these people, then how can we say that important people don't listen to them, if you know what I mean?
I'm saying regular people don't.
Yeah,
If
regular people don't. Yeah.
if you're working a regular job and you're good at it, if you work your ass off and do a good job, nobody in the real world gives a shit about the internet.
Yeah,
So
yes,
the
but
fear is overstated. Like the only thing to fear is fear itself. Okay, like that's what they want you afraid that you're going to get doxxed. You're going to get like, listen, if and hey, like guys, I'm a veteran of this game. Okay, when you're doing a documentary on Anita Sarkeesian, the left cares who you are and they try and fuck you up. But I'm not doing anything right now. I'm chatting with my good friend Dave. I'm making some sensible stay. I'm not hating anybody. I'm not saying anything terrible. What
yeah.
the hell are they going to do to me? I'm actually more worried, and this comment section is a perfect example. I'm more worried about my ex-friends who are still having a connection because I'm not their friend anymore than I am about the left. If you are good at your job, your boss doesn't. One
Yeah,
time,
I respect the opinions, very respectable. I totally see where you're coming from, but I just question like you're good at your job, therefore they can't fire you. In an era where they fired Brendan Eich, who, in my opinion, was one of the most competent people in the open source community, and so like when they fire him, I feel like these people are powerful enough so that it's not really possible for us to necessarily hide behind just plain IRL competence. If the mob comes for you, the mob will come for you. You have to just. I'm not saying you have to be careful. I totally respect we shouldn't be as afraid. They're not as
right,
powerful as they try to make it out.
I'm mostly saying that eventually the mob's going to come for all of us.
Yes.
Okay, at which point you die a glorious death and you go to heaven. Problem solved, right? I'm saying don't be afraid of them. Stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what happened with Ike, okay? I'll tell you what, I've got friends where I work. and they wouldn't put up with it. And there's a whole legal system that says that you can't fire somebody because of whatever it might be. And I'm good at my job. My boss, he makes more money because I make money for him.
Hmm.
So like and again, nothing's guaranteed. An Antifa could like break into my house and murder me tonight. That's a possibility, but it's not a likelihood, right? It's when you provoke that, when you're playing this stupid game of being the most popular dickhead on the internet. It's like, listen, if I wanted to be a professional dick, I'd lay around in a hammock and I'd spit on pictures of lingerie models all day, right?
Hmm.
If
I
you want a professional dick, yeah, you're going to have these people after you. Don't provoke them. They are just sad, lonely people that find meaning. They have no meaning. They have no children. They have no loved ones. Their job sucks, and they find meaning through this angry internet thing.
But would you, to borrow your analogy, would you call the Maoist Red Guard sadly lonely people who are trying to get meaning out of their? I mean, because the Maoist Red Guard would be like, that's a terrific force historically.
They are, but demons are always pathetic. Demons are not scary. What
No.
can the Red Guard do to you? Kill you?
Yeah.
Then finally, thank God, get me off of this shitty planet.
Well, in
Right?
that sense, I certainly see where you're coming from. I'm gonna go since on that note of agreement, I'm gonna go on to the next super chat. $5 from Charlemagne again. By the way, everyone, subscribe to Charlemagne. Excellent channel. If civil war happens, it will be a truly fourth generational conflict, unlike any war we have ever seen. There will be no armies meeting on. There will be no armies meeting on battlefields. I'd say that's likely. What do you think about that?
100% correct. Like it
Mm-hmm.
is 100%. Guys, it's don't be afraid of the night. Be afraid of what kills in the night. It's not about guys. I'm ex-military. Okay, one of my good friends here in town is ex-spec ops. You should see like he's got a waterproof machete hanging in his shower stall. But it's not the weapons that are gonna save you. It's not a game of Fallout. It's the psychological preparation. If you are psychologically prepared for this, you are fine. Like know yourself and know the enemy. You will be successful in 100 battles.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. This is fourth generational. This is not black or white. It's it's going to be weird. Okay, it's going to be really, really weird. And if you are thinking it's going to be shirts versus skins, then you're fucked.
I
If
th-
you think it's going to be whites versus blacks, you're fucked. Okay, you are one of the losers.
I think that I would say that the fourth generational nature of war that Charlemagne's pointed out leads me to believe that of all the various things that we want to have, the most graspable thread is networking. That's where all the other ones have to sort of be. That's where we have to start. And maybe it's in real life networking. I don't know anyone who's incredibly good at making, like I said, broad, open, public in life networks. But maybe it has to be in real life, or it can be some kind of censorship proof networking scheme that we have on the internet. But to me, that seems like the thing we need to grasp for fourth generational warfare.
Exactly. It's
I'll go on and do the second super chat
yeah.
here.
Okay, yeah.
For $2, Link, read. Link says for $2, read Dark Age America if you want to learn collapse. Is that a book? I think it is, right? I don't know. It sounds familiar, but I haven't heard of it. I have to confess.
There's a meme that somebody posted. I got to bring this up. It's a Venn diagram with
Mm.
four circles. One is 1984. The next is Idiocracy. The next is Camp of the Saints, and the final is Brave New World. And it's like at the very center with the clown Pepe. You are here.
That sounds disturbingly accurate. So for $5, Charlemagne again. I have to agree with this one. AI is not just spreadsheets, and the threat to human agency that AI poses is very serious and not well understood. Please do not be complacent on this. Yeah, I have to agree with this. I work in a kind of, how should I put this, an adjacent field to machine learning. And
Oh,
because of this, I had the privilege of, in a conference, presenting before one of the people that worked on AlphaGo, which was the program that eventually beat Go Grandmasters or Nine Dans in the famous Chinese strategy game. Some of these machine learning algorithms are really sophisticated, and they can do a lot of things that humans, even intuitive things that humans uh, spend their entire lives training to do. So it's, although general AI may indeed be impossible, or so far out of reach of humanity will never reach it. Uh, First of all, I don't think there's anything making. I don't know of anything that makes generalized AI impossible. And even if generalized AI isn't impossible, we do have machine learning algorithms that can do things that can genuinely replace a lot of things that humans naturally connect agency to.
oh, and listen, I agree with that. My point is, the point I was trying to get at is that it's not I am master computer
Mm-hmm.
from I have no mouth and I must scream that we need to worry about. It's not Skynet that
Mm-hmm.
we need to worry about. I've been tossing an idea for a sci-fi horror story in my head where we build an AI that's so good that the last human on Earth dies while talking to his girlfriend on Skype and surrounded by nurses, and he doesn't realize that he's the last human. They're all AIs. They're nothing but chat bots. And as soon as the last human dies, all of the computers shut themselves off. So it is a major threat, but at the same time, it's not Skynet. Okay, it's very good manipulative algorithms, but if you unplug from the system, you aren't going to be manipulated.
Well, what people are worried about, I think, is this is sort of something we've talked about a lot, and it's that I can develop on paper a number of reactionary systems that can kind of live in parallel with technology, sort of in the same way that you see societies running in Dune. But always in the back of our heads when we discuss these alternative ways of living with technology, the sort of fear is, well, if we don't build this technology and just totally integrate ourselves into it, won't our rival human factions, and then won't they have an edge, and then won't they just be able to totally, for lack of a better word, and to borrow from Mensch's mole bug, pwn us and enslave us? That's always sort of the fear is always that even if we can functionally integrate AI and human society in parallel, it kind of has to be an everyone's in type deal. It's hard to give your opponents this power and then just walk away from it. Twitter is sort of the same way. It's totally destructive, but if you're the only political party not using Twitter, you're at a serious disadvantage.
You know how our ancestors, so Europeans are very resistant to alcoholism. Whereas, like,
Oh, they were. I didn't know that.
I've got a Central American friend, and he can't drink because after 1 or 2 beers,
Mm-hmm.
he goes into that fugue state where he just needs to drink more, and he wakes up 3 towns over with no pants, with no memory of how he got there.
Yeah, if you're not African or Western European, you usually have a hard time with alcohol.
Whereas myself, I don't get to that stage until the second bottle of whiskey, and I pass out within 5 minutes, so I don't do too much damage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, our ancestors that were prone to alcohol, to that alcohol psychosis, they failed to reproduce, and so generally Europeans are very good with alcohol. What AI is creating is it's creating a world where people are, do you have the willpower to turn off the TV, to not listen to the advertisement, to not watch the Marvel movie, to look away from the porn?
Mm-hmm.
That's like,
No, I see what you're saying, and I think that's kind of more like optimistic. I think that's sort of, I call that the H.G. Wells time machine option, where the people who sort of move away from the soma and the pleasure machines and the online porn, sort of become like the Morlocks and eventually ascend to masterhood, because people who are stuck inside these self-validating systems just degenerate to the point where they're these effeminate things that are more or less pets. In some ways, that's more optimistic. And if you're right, if generalized AI never comes about, and if the people who come in contact with this technology become more and more placid by contact with it, I think that's probably more the future we're going to see. Although, who knows what's going to come in the future, right?
Uh, part of my ontological view of reality, part of my faith, is that if we get generalized intelligence, it might be very, very different from us, but it will still understand what beauty is. And so we will be able to communicate with it. We will be able to, like, it won't want to genocide us. I think any actual general intelligence, any ensouled intelligence, is going to be able to know God. So
I
I've got no worries
I,
about
I I've toyed around with spiritual theories that have thought similar things, but I'm certainly not convinced of that fact, and I wouldn't bet the future of the species on that either.
Well, I certainly wouldn't let the AI out of the box.
Yeah. Well, with that, let's go on, because I am. It's a very interesting conversation, but I am running out of time, and I want to get to the end of the super chats if you don't mind. Um. Okay. Okay. So for $2, Son of Tiamat, he says, Distributist, play Darkest Dungeon and Sunless Sea. My brother played Darkest Dungeon and said it was really good. I've kind of been not playing video games because I have a board game addiction.
Nerd!
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Nerd!
I know of Darkest Dungeon. I never heard of Sunless Sea. Is it a pirate game? If I made a pirate game, I probably would call it Sunless Sea. Maybe some. Have you heard of either of those two games?
No, no, I'm still playing Fallout 4 because I suck at life.
Well, I haven't. The last.
You know what? I preferred the alternative title to the game,
Yeah.
Fallout Endless Loading Screen.
I think the last game I played was Bioshock Infinite. It was in 2013. That was a long time ago. Oof. Um. Okay. $5 from Tom Bombadil. Aurini, we mess with you because we love you and miss you. Tune in to Bechtloff at 8 p.m. on Saturday and bring your logos. Well, I understood
Thank
about
you
half
for
of
giving my
that.
friend $5.
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving me the $5. Maybe I can pay it forward to some project that Arini is part of. And for $5, Die Hard Doogie recently realized that Star Trek TNG is a horror show in which humans risk death for replicators in order to not be bored. uh,
It is. It's like a total dystopia. Earth is a shithole, and it's like the military and political elites are the only people that matter. It's a communist. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a communist hellhole. But I'll say one thing about this: it's an honest it's a propaganda piece, but it's a propagandist piece that by TNG he means the Next Generation. Star Trek: The Next Generation is a liberal, progressive wet dream and piece of propaganda, but it is a well-made one, and it's an honest one, because unlike contemporary progressive propaganda, they have a good faith conservative representative standing in to make sort of the conservative argument that would be implicitly confronting this picture of utopia. And that conservative counter voice is Q. So the entire series can be seen as a dialectic between Q and Picard over whether this liberal progressive vision is indeed feasible or good. And I think there's a reason why you don't see Earth very often, because it just sounds so boring. It's practically dystopian.
Well, and by the end of the series, it winds up like that naive. I'm wearing tights where you can see my penor hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
Like it eventually. Picard goes to war, he gets tortured, et cetera, et cetera. By the end, it's like, you know what, Picard, you're a faggot liberal, but you survived my tests. I'm okay with you.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, that the military, in some sense, in Star Trek, you're seeing must be what must be the hardest, least cocked, most masculine element of the society. This is the foot they put
And they're a
forward,
bunch of faggots.
right? So it's like as though those people as individuals seem like they're perfectly good, but you have to imagine, like, if these people are like the Arnold Schwarzenegger commandos you're putting out forward to meet the Borg and the other creatures that threaten humanity, who's standing behind them?
Oh, this is some guy back on Earth. I like the fact that the Federation gave me a book of ideas. I like idea number 364. Remember different shades of gray you've seen in your life.
Well, I think that's the end of the super chats. At any rate, I'm. Thank you very much for coming on, Mr. Aurini, and maybe we can chat sometime in the future.
I would love it, brother. You have a good night. It's been
All
man,
right.
super chats, even the shitty ones.
Okay. Have a nice night. I'll talk to you later.
Uh,
Okay, so thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm just going to say I'm pretty tired right now, so I'll bid everyone adieu. I'm just going to wait a few more minutes in case there happened to be a super chat, the way there was the last two times I did this, and I will just say oh, I'm seeing comments from the chat. I think I don't really know much about Davis Aurini other than people wanted me to have him on. I know he's one of the really old school internet YouTubers, and everyone has an opinion about him. But I'm probably one of the few people on the internet that does not have an opinion on him. Okay, so there we go. The late super chat. Okay, this is the last one, guys. Die Hard Doogie for $2. The colonists on Riza are backing the Federation. Risa was the pleasure planet, right? Yeah, it was like a Club Med, but on a planetary scale, which, when you think about it, it's kind of horrifying. At any rate, although when you have a holodeck, do you even need to go to Risa? Can people not? I mean, could people? That's always what's not. Can if people can't tell the difference between holograms and reality, then why do people need to go to Risa for a vacation? It doesn't make any sense. It's I don't know, but yeah, I would say that the Next Generation is required reading, even though it's required reading that is propaganda from people who I oppose. Anyway, okay, well, have a good night, guys. I'm going to end the stream here, and everyone stay safe, and I'll probably be back with another distance or something not too far in the future. Oh, man, I need to go to the light. I always forget how hard it is to end these stupid things. Yeah, I intend to release a few more of the distributist appendices and then do the one on Peterson. And then after Peterson, go right on to the one about distributism, because I'm going to have a hard time fitting that all in before November. But it was great hearing from you guys. And yeah, see you guys later.